Only God and the sea know what happened to the great ship. Wow. Those chilling words were actually spoken by U.S. President Woodrow Wilson way back in 1918. He was talking about the sudden, completely traceless vanishing of the USS Cyclops. This was a massive Navy cargo ship with over 300 men on board, and it sailed into a certain patch of the Atlantic, and poof, it was simply never seen again. For centuries, our world has been defined by these dark corners and terrifying mysteries just like this one. But what happens when those shadows are suddenly hit with a laser-focused theme of modern science?
Welcome to this explainer. I am so incredibly thrilled to have you here today because, let me tell you, we are embarking on a truly mind-bending journey. We are going to look at exactly what happens when cutting-edge data, from lasers in the sky to environmental genetics to massive global data sets, takes on legendary natural phenomenon. We're basically putting myth right up against measurement. And honestly, the reality scientists are uncovering is far stranger and way more fascinating than any fiction we could possibly invent.
Okay, let's dive into this. On our agenda today, first, scanning the Amazon rainforest. Second, stepping inside a monster tornado. And finally, demystifying the Bermuda Triangle.
Section 1. Scanning the Amazon, the myth of the untouched wilderness.
For centuries, European explorers like Percy Fawcett vanished into the Amazon, tirelessly chasing a mythical lost metropolis they were convinced was hidden deep in the jungle. Now, the scientific consensus for a long time was that Fawcett was basically chasing a ghost, right? People believed the Amazon was just way too inhospitable to support large human populations. But recently, that entire consensus was completely shattered by a technology called LiDAR. By firing millions of laser pulses from aircraft down into the jungle, scientists can measure exactly how long it takes for the light to bounce back. This allows them to generate incredibly precise 3D maps, and here's the crazy part, digitally strip away the dense forest canopy. It literally acts exactly like X-ray vision. And when archaeologists finally looked at the bare ground beneath, they realized something absolutely stunning. Percy Fawcett was actually looking in the right place all along. He just didn't have the right tools.
This is a massive paradigm shift that completely changes how we view the entire region. We once fully believed the myth of infertile soil and this vast, untouched wilderness. But underneath that canopy, LiDAR revealed over 6,000 rectangular earthen structures, massive pyramids, and complex road networks in places like Ecuador and Bolivia. It's like a giant puzzle finally coming together. But you might be wondering, how on earth did they grow food for all those people? Well, ancient Amazonians actually engineered the soil. They created something called terra preta, which is a carbon-rich, dark earth made from compost and charcoal, effectively turning totally infertile ground into agricultural gold. So the Amazon isn't just a wild, untamed jungle. It's a deeply historical, human-engineered landscape that's been managed for thousands of years.
And the wild part? The revelations don't just stop with ancient cities. Scientists are also using a biological version of X-ray vision called eDNA, or environmental DNA. By simply scooping up some river water and running it through a filter, researchers can capture microscopic genetic material shed by animals further upstream. These samples act as genetic sentinels. Recently, scientists used this exact eDNA method to track the incredibly elusive Amazonian manatee without ever actually laying eyes on a single one. It's absolutely brilliant and proves that whether it's buried cities or hidden creatures, this dense jungle is still guarding countless, breathtaking secrets.
Moving on to Section 2, Inside the Monster Tornado, the 2013 El Reno Twister.
Let's pivot from the humid rainforest over to the turbulent skies of Tornado Alley in Oklahoma. Back in May 2013, an atmospheric powder keg of extreme heat, moisture, and wind shear birthed a supercell storm that completely defied all the models. Just look at this staggering number, 4.2 kilometers wide. That is roughly 2.5 miles. It absolutely shattered the world record, making the El Reno storm the largest tornado ever recorded by humans. It was so impossibly massive that to the storm chasers and locals stuck on the ground, it didn't even look like a funnel. It just looked like a rapidly advancing, dark, terrifying wall of fog and rain spanning the entire horizon.
So, the terrifying question that had meteorologists totally baffled was, how did it get so big, so fast? I mean, this Leviathan ballooned from a small dusty whirl into a 4.2-kilometer wedge in just 16 minutes. 16 minutes! To even begin to understand this anomaly, scientists had to look at data captured by a revolutionary piece of equipment.
Okay, so conventional models always taught us that tornadoes drop from the clouds downward.
right? But during the El Reno storm, researchers had a rapid scan mobile radar that took high-resolution snapshots every 2 seconds. This rapid-fire data revealed something totally unexpected. The tornadic rotation was incredibly strong at the ground level before it ever organized in the clouds up above. This storm formed from the bottom up. This invisible ground-level genesis is exactly why it expanded so violently, and, tragically, caught so many seasoned experts totally off guard, including the legendary and usually very cautious storm chaser Tim Summeres.
And the sheer madness going on inside that 4.2-kilometer wall of fog, it's just beyond comprehension. The main storm actually broke down into multiple subvortices. Think mini tornadoes ripping around inside the main tornado, and they were clocked at a mind-bending 503 kilometers per hour. And they didn't just spin in a neat little circle. They exhibited erratic, looping, trochoidal motion. Imagine drawing with one of those old spirograph toys, where the pen loops wildly backward and forward while still moving in a larger circle. That is exactly what these deadly subvortices were doing across the farmland. Throw in a completely separate satellite tornado spinning clockwise on the outside, and you had a storm that was scientifically impossible to predict or outrun.
Now, this monstrous event ignited a huge debate in the scientific community. You see, the enhanced Fujita scale rates tornadoes strictly on the physical damage they cause. Because El Reno mostly churned over open farmland and hit very few structures, its official rating is merely an EF3. Yet that mobile radar data definitively proved it had EF5 wind speeds well over 476 kilometers per hour. This highlights a really dangerous disconnect. If we only measure a hazard by what it happens to destroy rather than its true measurable power, we seriously risk underbuilding our infrastructure for the storms of the future.
All right, Section 3. Demystifying the Bermuda Triangle, the ultimate sea myth.
This infamous area of the Atlantic, bounded roughly by Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, has inspired some wildly imaginative theories. We're talking alien abductions, interdimensional portals, the lost city of Atlantis, you name it. But let's trace how this myth actually snowballed into a global panic. In 1492, Christopher Columbus reported strange lights and compass variations in the area. Jump ahead to 1918, and we have that opening quote from Woodrow Wilson regarding the tragic vanishing of the USS Cyclops. Then in 1945, Flight 19, a squadron of 5 Navy bombers, gets lost and disappears completely. But it actually wasn't until 1964, right during the height of Cold War paranoia, that a writer for Argosy magazine connected all these isolated tragedies and officially coined the term Bermuda Triangle. And just like that, the legend was born, and the public's imagination totally ran wild.
What's really fascinating here is that we absolutely do not need aliens or portals to explain the challenges of this region. We have actual, measurable environmental culprits. First, the triangle is an area where magnetic declination can seriously confuse inexperienced navigators. Second, it sits right on top of the Gulf Stream, which is a massive, swift ocean current that can literally carry wreckage hundreds of miles away in just hours. Add to that the fact that this specific region is an absolute magnet for severe, sudden hurricane weather. Some scientists have even hypothesized about underwater methane gas blowouts causing ships to suddenly lose buoyancy, though admittedly that one's a bit less likely. The main takeaway, the ocean right here is just objectively, naturally tough to navigate.
But all of that leaves us with the ultimate question. With all those environmental factors at play, and all those famous disappearances dominating the headlines, how dangerous is the Bermuda Triangle really? When we pull away from the folklore and look at the hard, cold, big data, what does it actually tell us about the peril of crossing this mythical boundary?
The answer is absolutely staggering. When researchers analyzed vast amounts of marine casualty data, they found that globally, about 1.8% of vessels experience some sort of casualty or issue. But in the Bermuda Triangle, the rate is a minuscule 0.02%. Big data conclusively proves that the Bermuda Triangle is roughly 90 times safer than the global average. No way, right? And as for those famous anomalies, most of them, including the tragic loss of Flight 19, have been definitively linked to pilot disorientation and human error, rather than any sort of mysterious supernatural forces.
So, the grand conclusion? The Devil's Triangle is actually fabulously unremarkable. It doesn't even crack the top 10 list for dangerous ocean regions in the world. Areas like the South China Sea see vastly more incidents. This completely shatters centuries of legend, proving once again that cold, hard statistical data is the absolute ultimate mythbuster.
Which brings us right back to the premise of our entire explainer today. What happens when modern science takes on our planet's oldest myths? Whether we are using LiDAR to strip away the Amazon canopy to find ancient metropolises, deploying rapid scan radars to uncover the invisible ground-up genesis of a monster tornado, or crunching global shipping data to completely neutralize the Bermuda Triangle, technology forces us to completely reevaluate what we thought we knew.
Because honestly, the truth uncovered by measurement is far more terrifying and fascinating than the myths we've believed for centuries. We don't need a mythical city of gold, we have ancient societies that literally engineered the rainforest itself. We don't need exaggerated tall tales of wind, we have 4-kilometer-wide storms that rewrite physics. And we certainly don't need sea monsters. We have a vast, dynamic ocean that simply demands our utmost respect. It leaves us with one final provocative thought. If sheer measurement can demystify our planet's greatest legends this completely, what other hidden truths are sitting right in front of us, just waiting for the exact right laser or algorithm to uncover them?